All right, today we're cracking open a true business classic from 1987, The Art of the Deal. So what made this book such a huge deal? Well, we're going to deconstruct its core principles, the strategies, the mindset, and all the tactics that really defined an entire era of deal-making. Let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, the book sets this powerful frame. We're not just talking about business here, we're talking about a creative passion. This is the whole philosophy in a nutshell. The idea that a high-stakes negotiation is really its own kind of art form. And the real thrill, it comes from the act of creation itself.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to step into the shoes of the deal maker. Then, we'll get into the core mindset. You know, how to dream big, but also manage your risk. After that, it's all about the tools of the trade, leverage, the media, and smart execution. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at what really drives the whole game.
Okay, so what does the life of a big-time dealmaker actually look like according to this book? Well, if you're picturing rigid schedules and stuffy, formal meetings, you might want to think again. It's pretty much the exact opposite.
The thinking here is that creativity and real entrepreneurial spirit get completely crushed by too much structure. The style described is, well, it's fluid, it's reactive. No briefcase, an open-door policy, and a day that's just driven by a constant barrage of phone calls, sometimes over 100 a day. The whole point is that the best opportunities are usually the ones you don't see coming, so you have to be flexible enough to grab them.
And this timeline, wow, it shows that loose structure in action, and believe me, it's no exaggeration. This is a typical Monday morning straight from the book. You're jumping from a stock deal to giving political advice to a pressure cooker negotiation to save a family farm, then you're battling the NFL in court, and then you're strategizing with an icon like Lee Iacocca. All of that before your day's even over. It's just a relentless, high-stakes juggling act.
So that was the chaotic what of a dealmaker's life. But what about the how? How do you actually pull it off? Let's dive into the mindset. The book really boils its strategy down to two core principles that sound like they contradict each other, but they're actually two sides of the very same coin.
The first principle sounds so simple it's almost deceptive. Think big. The argument in the book is that most people just limit themselves because they're afraid of success or maybe afraid of making those huge decisions. So just by aiming higher from the very beginning, you're already giving yourself a massive advantage. This whole mindset is fueled by what the book calls a controlled neurosis, basically an obsessive, laser-like focus on hitting that goal. And here's the crucial counterbalance to thinking big. This isn't about being a reckless gambler. It's about being incredibly careful with your risk. The strategy is to start every deal by imagining everything, and I mean everything, that could possibly go wrong. If you know you can survive the absolute worst-case scenario, then anything good that happens is just a bonus. It's this super conservative planning that builds the solid foundation you need to make those big moves.
The book gives us a perfect case study of this in Atlantic City, contrasting two totally different ways to build a casino. In one approach, the gaming license was locked down before spending hundreds of millions on construction. It took more time, sure, but it cut the financial risk way down. On the other hand, Baron Hilton went for speed. He started building his enormous casino while applying for his license, a huge gamble. Well, when Hilton's license was denied, he had to sell his nearly finished $400 million building for pennies on the dollar. A painful lesson in what happens when you don't protect your downside.
Okay, so we've got the mindset down. Now let's get into the tactical toolkit, the actual strategies the book lays out for creating the best possible conditions for any deal.
Leverage. It's the absolute heart of any negotiation. But here's the key insight from the book. Leverage isn't just something you have, it's something you can actually create. With a little imagination and a lot of salesmanship, you can convince the other side that making a deal with you is the best thing they could possibly do, even if they didn't see it that way at first.
And this gets right to the psychology of it all. The second you seem desperate, you've lost. All your power just evaporates. It's about perception. You have to project strength and show that you have other options, because that's just as important as any tangible asset you bring to the table. It's about controlling the vibe in the room.
This builds right on that idea of not being desperate. The book's advice is simple. Never, ever fall in love with a single deal. A great example is the Penn Central Rail Yard story. The first plan was for housing, but when the city's financing for that fell through, the whole plan pivoted to pitching the site as a convention center instead. Because there were multiple ways to use the asset, the project survived.
Now this one kind of turns that classic real estate mantra, location, 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 right on its head. The book basically argues that's a myth. The real play isn't paying a fortune for the best spot, it's getting the best deal and then using your own skills to create the value.
It points to Trump Plaza on 3rd Avenue as an example of how promotion, branding, and a little psychology can make a good location seem like a great one in people's minds.
Of course, making a location feel special takes promotion, and that brings us right to our next section, the book's playbook for using the media as a tool to build buzz and really create value out of thin air.
The strategy here is all about storytelling. See, you're not just putting up a building, you're building a narrative around it. The book suggests using a bit of bravado, maybe a little hyperbole, to make a project feel larger than life. This taps into the public's love for big, exciting ideas and generates a ton of free interest.
And the logic behind this strategy is actually pretty fascinating. A full-page ad costs a ton of money. And let's be honest, people are skeptical of ads. But a news story, according to the book, that's priceless. It's free for one, and it comes with a level of credibility that you just can't buy. The idea is that any press is good press because attention itself creates value. It makes your project part of the conversation.
But it's not all about charming the media. The book also says you have to be ready to fight when you need to. The principle is, if you truly believe you're in the right, you have to be willing to fight for it, publicly and aggressively. The example given is suing the city in 6 different courts just to win a tax break for Trump Tower. It's described as a risky move for sure, but one that ultimately paid off.
Look, all the hype and great deal-making in the world won't matter one bit if you can't actually deliver. So let's shift gears and talk about the nuts and bolts of getting the job done, according to the book.
This gets to such a critical point. Hype has a shelf life. The book is really clear on this. You can use bravado to build all the interest you want, but it's worthless if you don't deliver a quality product at the end of the day. If the reality doesn't match the fantasy you've been selling, your credibility is shot and the whole thing can just fall apart.
And delivering the goods also means delivering on budget. The book pushes for a relentless, almost obsessive focus on controlling costs. There's this anecdote about personally calling up a contractor to argue over a pretty small overcharge on a demolition job. The message is crystal clear. No amount is too small to fight for, because that kind of discipline saves you millions in the long run.
And the Wollman Rink project is held up as the ultimate case study in execution. I mean, just look at the difference here. The city of New York spent 7 years and who knows how many millions failing to rebuild this thing. The book describes how the Trump organization came in and got the job done in just a few months and under budget. It's framed as the perfect example of delivering on your promises efficiently.
Now, to see how all these principles, buying right, adding value, and selling smart can come together, the book walks through an early deal for a property called Swifton Village. It's really a masterclass in smart execution. So the opportunity was this huge 1,200-unit apartment complex out in Cincinnati. But it was in foreclosure, and get this, a staggering 800 of those apartments were sitting empty.
And because it was in such bad shape, the purchase price was only $6 million. But here's the real kicker. The deal was structured so that no money was put down.
And here's the playbook in action. So, after getting the property, the next move was to invest in some simple cosmetic upgrades and really focus on management to get better tenants in there. And it worked. Within just 1 year, they hit 100% occupancy. But then, after getting a tip that the neighborhood might be heading for a decline, the decision was made. Time to sell this now valuable, stabilized asset. And the result? The property sold for $12 million. That's a $6 million profit on a deal that required zero cash up front. It's the book's perfect storm, protecting the downside, executing flawlessly, and knowing exactly when to walk away.
So, after we've broken down all the tactics and the execution, we have to ask the final question. Why? What's the real motivation behind this relentless, non-stop pace?
And the book's answer is that it's actually not about the money itself. Money is just framed as a way to keep score, like points in a game. The real driver, the true reward, is the thrill of playing that game, the challenge of the negotiation, the creativity of structuring the deal, and of course, the satisfaction of the win. And that kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on. If the whole pursuit of wealth is just a game, and the money is only the points on the board, what's the real purpose of playing? What truly drives that kind of ambition? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for watching.